All right, can you just introduce yourself for us?
Okay, my name's Mick Drew. I'm the CEO of Arms Reliability Engineers from Australia. We also have an office in Austin, Texas. We've recently opened in Calgary. We're also in the UK, Johannesburg, Montevideo.
Okay, and how long have you been a partner of Copperleaf?
Not very long. I think it's about a month. But I first met Budwin in Las Vegas at a casino, but it was a conference just over 12 months ago. And I was talking about our tools. So we're reliability experts, and we do reliability simulation to optimise asset management. Budwin was in the audience, and he listened to me talk about how we characterise failure and we predict the life of assets and basically create a decision-making model to allow people to optimise their asset design as well as their maintenance plans. He came up to me and he said, you know, we do something similar, but we take a high-level view. And I'm really interested in the level that you take because we provide a lot of granularity at the behaviour level. And so we had a good conversation about that. And I could see the merit in what he was offering, and I thought, you know, we spend so much time at the decision-making level, we don't elevate high enough to actually put together in a holistic view in terms of an asset management plan. And I think we have a lot of customers that we deal with that would benefit from that. So that was the origins of our discussions with Budwin, and that's why we're here today, to really try and get insight into why customers actually use Copperleaf and the C55 product.
Okay. What have you what's the value to you of the Copperleaf user group meeting?
Okay, so the value to Arms Reliability is really the customer perspective. What I heard today from each of the customers in the sort of going around the room, what are you doing and why are you doing it, where you're at, it really confirmed my thoughts as to why I would think somebody would want the Copperleaf product. The explanation of the product makes sense in that it provides clarity for decision makers, given that people are confronted with a lot of assets, a lot of constraints, a lot of demands in terms of needing to meet their risk profiles, their asset investment goals, their business goals. And within that environment, you've got a lot of uncertainty, you've got a lot of aging assets, and you've got a lot of engineering folk that know the assets, but then you've got another element, which is really, how do I manage the value of those assets to the business, so that financial element. And quite often what we find is that the financial people don't really relate that well to the engineering people, and vice versa. So there's a disconnect. And I think what I like about the C55 product and what I heard today from the customers, it provides a window into both worlds, and it makes the world simpler to make decisions and get clarity on the impact of those decisions, not just today, but down the track. So we might be constrained by cost today, given the environment. But if I'm going to make a decision based on financial constraints today, well, what impact does that have in 10 years or 20 years? Now that's important in terms of when you've got $1 billion or a couple of $1 billion or even more asset base. You can't afford to have a short-term focus on decision making, and you can't afford to put your preferences to engineering-weighted decisions at the expense of the financial side of the business. So I came today to validate my thoughts about where it's at, and it was really interesting hearing how people were implementing the C55 product, but they seem to be doing it in a very passionate yet simplified way. I didn't hear any complex language. I didn't hear any complexity of thought. I heard lots of different approaches in the way that you could do it. Each of them made sense in terms of how I understood the talker and how they related to their role in the business. So I was pretty pleased with today. I think it validates what I think is a good place for C55 in the marketplace. I think there's a lot of industries out there that could benefit from it, and I'm quite excited to take our approach, marry it with the Copperleaf approach, and take it to, we have strengths in the resource sector. I intend to take it into the resource sector. Oil and gas sector, they're dealing with big assets, they're dealing with risks, they're dealing with vulnerabilities. They're also dealing with lots of return on investment challenges, and that's where we hope to take it.
Okay. And where do you see the biggest opportunities for the partnership between ARMS and Copperleaf?
You mean in terms of the industry?
Yeah.
Well, I can immediately see for companies that have lots of different resource streams and lots of different sites, when you're a corporate entity and you're needing to get full value out of your capital, if they're not using a tool like this, they're probably using spreadsheets and are probably confused, and they're probably missing a lot of opportunities to realise the balance between today's capital decisions and tomorrow's operating expense. And in the resource sector, the margins have reduced. They're working on a lot lower margins than what they had 3 or 4 years ago, and that balance between operating expense and capital investment is critical.
Okay. All right. And I know you guys are doing a presentation tomorrow about the availability workbench.
Yeah.
Did I get that right? Okay. Is there anything you want to comment on that and what the intent of that presentation is?
Well, we're going to show you the way that we model the reliability performance of assets. Now, it's very much a lower level view. It gets down into the drivers of asset performance. We're going to show where it fits in the realm of a C55 type solution. I think it adds to the integrity of the C55 solution, and we're also going to show a bridge between the decision-making environment and the work management environment, which is critical for both Copperleaf and ARMS to have the ability to implement decisions as well as to get feedback from the assets, because it's really the asset behaviour that you're managing, and the best way to actually build models on asset behaviour is to base it upon the likely asset performance. And today's reality can be translated into a future forecast, and that's what specialise in, that's what we're good at. That's why we can go into lots of different situations, many power generation companies in Australia with either hydro, coal, gas, wind. You can build some very good probabilistic models forecasting future performance. And I think that will demonstrate to the people at the conference that with the Copperleaf high-level view on asset performance and competing dimensions of an analysis, if you can add integrity by the quality of the forecast that you're making, the decisions become less challengeable, more realistic to an organisation. I mean, I like to say to people when people challenge some of the life cycle forecasts and the scenarios, well, it's not our opinion that's driving that model, it's the asset behaviour that's driving the model. And if you want to challenge me on the asset behaviour, let's have a look at the history. And really what we're saying is we let the asset do the talking. So we modelled power poles, for example. Now, our wooden power poles don't last as long as the North American cedar. We use a lot of stringy barks and those, not a lot of hardwoods, so we have less life. But you know, I guess similar practice to North America, when you're running a transmission line, you look for the nearest source of wood to get a pole, and that's exactly what happened in Australia in terms of the build-up of the transmission and distribution systems. So we might be dealing with 20 odd different species of power pole in different terrains, urban, non-urban, bushfire, non-bushfire, dry or near the coast in swampy areas. Each of those poles have got their own characteristic behaviour. And of course what everyone's guarding against is that bow wave. Do I have a population of assets that are all going to reach the end of life and give me a risk or a demand on capital that I actually can't resource? And so that's the benefit of actually getting some sort of future look and a future model. And so when we model power poles, it's not our opinion on the power pole, it's taking a sample data that represents the population and modelling on that. So we've certainly used our models to go back to the regulators and challenge some of the regulatory requirements, which is sort of blanket rules to capture everybody. Well, if you really want to optimise your use of capital and operating expense, you want a smarter decision, and a good forecast gives you a smarter decision.